Rain slid down the cafe windows like thin silver lines, blurring the busy street outside. Inside, the smell of coffee and warm bread filled the air. Emma rushed in late from work, shaking water from her jacket, already thinking about deadlines and phone calls. That was when she saw him. He sat alone near the window, tall and still, his hands wrapped around a cup that had gone cold. His hair was mostly gray, but his face was strong and calm, like someone who had faced many storms and learned how to stand through them. Something in his quiet presence pulled her attention away from everything else. She tried to look away, but her eyes kept drifting back, drawn by a feeling she couldn't name. 2 days later, she saw him again in the same seat, wearing a simple coat and reading a small notebook. This time, her friend Lily was with her, laughing about something on her phone until Emma gently nudged her and nodded toward the window. Lily looked, paused, and raised her eyebrows. The man was clearly much older, but there was a peaceful strength around him. He didn't rush. He didn't stare at screens. He just existed, calm in a world that moved too fast. Emma felt curious, and Lily felt it too, though she didn't admit it at first. They kept noticing him over the next week, always alone, always kind to the staff. He smiled in a soft way, not asking for attention, but giving warmth freely. One afternoon, the waitress mixed up orders, and Emma stood to help explain. The man looked up at her and smiled. His eyes were tired but gentle. He thanked her, and his voice was deep and steady, like a river that never rushed. That single moment opened the door to a conversation that felt natural, like they had known each other longer than a few minutes. His name was Daniel Harris. He was 53. He had once designed large buildings, but now focused on small homes near the coast. He told stories in a simple way, not trying to impress, just sharing pieces of his life. He spoke about his late wife with love and respect, about raising a daughter who now lived across the country, about learning how quiet a house becomes after loss. Emma listened closely, feeling each word settle in her chest. Lily listened too, her teasing smile fading into something softer. From that day on, the cafe became their meeting place. Sometimes it was just quick hellos. Other times they sat for hours talking about dreams, regrets, and life's strange turns. Daniel never crossed any lines. He never made things uncomfortable. He simply listened, offered gentle advice, and laughed quietly when Emma told funny work stories. He looked proud when Lily talked about wanting to open her own business one day. Being with him felt peaceful, like stepping out of noise into calm. Emma found herself thinking about him during the day. She wondered if he had eaten, if he was working on a new design, if he was sitting alone again. Lily teased her at first, but soon she felt the same pull. There was something rare about Daniel. He didn't rush to impress. He didn't play games. He made them feel heard in a way no one else ever had. One evening, as the sky turned orange outside the cafe, Daniel spoke about loneliness. He said it wasn't loud or dramatic, but quiet and heavy, like carrying a stone in your chest every day. Emma felt tears rise, not because of sadness alone, but because she understood. Lily reached for Daniel's hand without thinking, then quickly pulled back, surprised by her own action. Daniel noticed but said nothing. From that moment, everything felt different. The air between them grew warmer. The silence felt deeper. Their laughter lasted longer, but so did the fear, Daniel began to realize what was happening. He saw the way Emma's eyes followed him when he stood up. Hey. He noticed Lily leaning closer when he spoke. He felt his own heart waking up after years of sleep, and it terrified him. One rainy night, when the cafe was nearly empty, Daniel finally spoke the truth he had been holding back. He said they were too young, that life should be opening for them, not tying them to someone his age. He said he cared too much to let things go further. His voice shook slightly, showing how hard it was for him to say. Emma looked at him with pain and honesty. She told him that age didn't erase connection, that she felt safer with him than with anyone she had ever dated. Lily nodded, saying he made her feel strong instead of small. Their words came fast, full of emotion they had tried to hide. Daniel stood up, pacing slowly. He ran a hand through his gray hair, breathing deeply. He said he didn't want to be. The reason they missed out on life, he said people would judge. He said hearts get broken easily. Emma whispered that hearts break when people walk away too. Silence filled the cafe. Rain tapped harder on the windows. Daniel looked at them both, and for a moment his strength slipped. His eyes shined with tears he had kept buried for years. He admitted he hadn't felt this alive since his wife passed. He admitted their presence made the days lighter. But he also said love should protect, not complicate. That night they left without hugging, without smiling, without knowing what would happen next. Emma lay awake, staring at her ceiling, replaying every word. Lily cried quietly into her pillow, feeling the ache of something growing too fast to control. Daniel sat alone in his dark house, staring at old photos, wondering if opening his heart again was a mistake or a second chance. None of them slept, because they all felt the same truth. Something powerful had started. And no matter how hard they tried to stop it, their hearts were already too deep. The calm man by the window was no longer just a stranger. He was the center of emotions they never expected. And the story had only just begun. Rain had stopped, but the streets of Seattle were slick and shiny, reflecting the streetlights like tiny rivers. Emma and Lily had spent the morning at the cafe, hoping to see Daniel, but the seat by the window remained empty. Emma's chest felt tight, a dull ache she couldn't shake. Lily sipped her coffee silently, the chatter of other customers fading into the background. They had grown used to his presence, his calm voice, the way he seemed to understand things, without needing explanation. Now that warmth was gone, leaving a quiet emptiness that felt heavy and hard to name. Days passed and Daniel did not appear. Emma tried to keep herself busy at work, but her mind wandered to him constantly. She wondered if he was lonely, if he thought about them, if he regretted leaving without a word. Lily, normally full of jokes and energy, became quieter too. The absence of Daniel made them both realize how much they had come to depend on his presence, his steadying calm, and his gentle wisdom. It wasn't just curiosity or admiration, it was something deeper, something that had grown too fast, too quietly, to be ignored. Finally, Emma made a decision. She could not wait for him to come back. She needed to know. She looked up his name online, found his design office by the harbor, and walked there. The rainwater soaking her shoes. The office was small, neat, and filled with sunlight reflecting off the large windows. She hesitated at the door, wondering if this was right, but the thought of leaving without speaking to him felt unbearable. Lily followed quietly, not saying a word, just giving Emma support with her presence. Daniel was surprised to see them. He had been at his desk reviewing plans for a new coastal home project. He looked up slowly, his calm demeanor faltering slightly as he took in their drenched forms. "You shouldn't be here," he said softly, though there was no anger in his voice, only surprise and caution. Akana stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly. "You left without saying goodbye," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I had to see you." Lily stayed a step behind, her eyes on Daniel, full of unspoken words. Daniel exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. He looked at them both, the weight of years and experience in his gaze. "I left because I care," he said quietly. "This isn't fair to either of you." Emma shook her head. "Life isn't fair," she said. "But feelings are real, Daniel. Shh. You can't pretend they aren't just because they're complicated." Lily stepped forward then, her voice gentle but firm. "We're not confused," she said. "We understand the situation, but leaving hurts more than staying. We don't want to lose you." Daniel's eyes softened. He had spent years alone after losing someone he loved. He had built walls around himself, believing they were necessary to protect his heart and theirs. But here they were, standing in front of him, brave enough to confront the fear and speak. Honestly, he felt a warmth in his chest he had not felt in years. He had thought he could be alone and strong, but their presence made him realize that strength was different when shared. "I'm old enough to be your father," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "You deserve someone your age. You deserve a future with someone who fits naturally into your lives." Emma smiled through tears, shaking her head. "Age doesn't erase connection. You make me feel safe, understood, and alive. That matters. More than numbers." Lily reached out, touching his arm gently. "You make us feel seen. We've never felt that way before." And it's not about age. It's about heart. Daniel looked at them both, feeling a rush of emotion that was almost frightening in its intensity. He had been careful for so long, but now he realized that the choice was no longer just about caution. It was about being open to life, to connection, to the possibility of love again. He had told himself that being alone was safer, but it was emptier than he had imagined. Their honesty, their courage, made him realize that vulnerability was not weakness. It was the only way to truly live. They spent hours talking, sharing memories, fears, and dreams. They walked by the harbor as the sun dipped low over the water, casting long golden reflections across the wet pavement. The wind was sharp and cold, but their hearts were warm, connected by a shared understanding that transcended age, expectations, and fear. Each step together felt like a small victory against loneliness and hesitation. Daniel noticed the small details: the way Emma laughed when the wind messed up her hair, the way Lily's eyes lit up when she talked about her future dreams. He felt alive in ways he had thought were gone forever. People walked past, some glancing curiously, some judging silently. But none of that mattered. Their world was small, intimate, and private, filled with conversation, laughter, and silence that spoke louder than words. They talked about the future carefully, acknowledging the challenges that lay ahead. Daniel worried about judgment and the unknown. Emma worried about the weight of expectation. Lily worried about heartbreak. But together, they also recognized a truth that had been growing steadily since their first meeting. Real connection doesn't wait for perfect timing or societal approval. As the evening settled, Daniel finally spoke with a softness that had been absent for years. "I don't know where this will lead," he admitted, "but I don't want to lose you. I don't want to go back to the quiet I've been living with." Emma smiled, tears glinting in her eyes. "Then don't," she whispered. Lily squeezed his hand gently. "We'll face it together," she said. And in that moment, something shifted. The uncertainty remained, the challenges ahead were real, but the warmth of their connection created a strength that none of them had expected. They spent the night walking along the quiet streets, talking about small dreams and big fears. Their hearts beating in sync with each other and the rhythm of the city. Daniel felt a profound gratitude for this unexpected turn in his life. He had been prepared for quiet, for solitude, for safety, but not for this. He had underestimated the power of honesty, courage, and simple companionship. Emma and Lily, in turn, felt a sense of belonging and understanding that had been missing from their lives. When they finally paused near the water, watching the reflections of the city lights ripple across the harbor, Daniel spoke quietly. "Love doesn't always follow the rules people make," he said. "Sometimes it finds you in unexpected places with unexpected people." Emma nodded, her hand resting on his arm. "And sometimes it changes your life forever." Lily smiled, leaning slightly on him. "We don't have all the answers, but we have this moment, and that's enough to start." They all understood that the road ahead would not be easy. There would be whispers, judgment, uncertainty, and fear. But there would also be laughter, warmth, connection, and growth. They had found something rare and precious, a bond that transcended convention and fear. A bond rooted in respect, honesty, and a shared willingness to face life together. Daniel, who had once thought he could survive only in quiet solitude, realized that he had been wrong. Strength could be shared, hearts could heal together, and love could bloom even when the timing seemed impossible. Emma and Lily discovered that age was less important than sincerity. That courage meant embracing feelings even when they seemed complicated, and that life could offer unexpected beauty when hearts were open. That night, as they left the harbor and walked back through the softly lit streets, their steps were lighter than they had been in years. The future remained uncertain. The world still held its judgments, and life's promised challenges ahead. But for the first time in a long while, Daniel did not walk alone. Emma and Lily were beside him, not as shadows or fleeting presences, but as people who mattered deeply, and he mattered to them more than words could capture. They returned to the cafe the next day, not just for coffee, but for the routine that had brought them together. Sitting near the window, they shared smiles, stories, and quiet moments, aware that what they had was rare, valuable, and fragile. Yet there was no fear in their connection now. There was only understanding, warmth, and the steady pulse of hearts willing to risk vulnerability for the sake of love. The story of Daniel, Emma, and Lily was no longer just about a quiet man with silver hair or two young women seeking connection. It was about courage, honesty, and the unspoken magic that happens when hearts meet in unexpected ways. They had discovered a love that was not loud, not reckless, but powerful in its simplicity and truth. And though the road ahead remained unknown, they knew they would face it together, step by step, heart by heart. Bound by a connection that refused to be ignored. Sometimes life doesn't follow the rules. Sometimes it surprises, challenges, and changes everything. And sometimes, when three hearts find each other in a world full of noise and hurry, they create something beautiful, enduring, and unforgettable. And that is exactly what had happened. Between Daniel, Emma, and Lily, a quiet, steady, impossible to ignore love that promised to shape their lives in ways they could only begin to imagine. Rain might return, storms might come, and people might judge. But inside their hearts, they had already found a home. A home built not on age, expectation, or circumstance, but on trust, honesty, and a love that refused to be ignored. And as they sat together by the harbor window, sharing the quiet, shared moments of the evening, all three knew that no matter what the world said, they would not walk away from each other. Not now, not ever.